Welcome to the fifth stop on Ohio's Energy Future Tour, which is something I have been working on and many others in this room have been working on since last fall. We had our first event in December in Cleveland, and since then we've been to Columbus and Dayton and Toledo and tonight Cincinnati, and the end of June we'll be in Athens, and that will complete our series of regional forums to reach out to the local communities and hear from business leaders and community leaders about all the things that are happening in the areas of renewable energy and energy efficiency. It is a positive message. It is a nonpartisan message. It is designed to show support for these policies that save us money and protect our health and environment. And so again, thank you. And I am going to now introduce our moderator for this evening, Jeremy Faust. I think from the way you were all greeting him, most of you know him. I don't need to introduce him. I don't know. But he is the Strategic Business Development Director for the Greater Cincinnati Energy Alliance. And as such, he supports the Alliance through the development of corporate partnerships and government outreach. He also serves on the executive team of the Ohio Home Performance Network and co-chairs the Green Umbrella Energy Conversation and Efficiency Action Team. And we were very happy to have him help us. He was the Alliance, Green Umbrella, and Cincinnati State are all co-sponsors of this event tonight, and they have all been of tremendous help. We couldn't do it without our regional co-sponsors. Jeremy spent 9 years in the District of Columbia, first of all going to law school at George Washington University, and also working for a committee of the District of Columbia Council, the Committee on Environment, Public Works, and Transportation. He got his undergraduate degree at the University of Colorado, but we are very glad that he went from west to east and then came here to the Midwest. So, Jeremy, I will hand the podium over to you.
Exciting to have the Ohio Energy Future Tour here in Cincinnati. As Jane noted, thanks to Cincinnati State, the college has done a tremendous job helping to develop the next generation of advanced energy leaders through the programs that it has here. Larry, you've done a wonderful job, and we certainly appreciate that work and for your hosting tonight. Green Umbrella has always been a champion in the development of these types of conversations. Brewster, when he's not behind the camera, is always the loudest voice in the room, sharing the great things that the community is doing, all the work that businesses and nonprofits in the region are doing, so we certainly appreciate that. And today is, of course, a special day for Green Umbrella, as Kristen Weiss is taking over as the new executive director, and we're very happy to have her joining the community in the conversation and look forward to the support she'll provide going forward. And then certainly Ohio Advanced Energy Economy, and Jane Harf especially for the work done to bring the tour together. As she noted, going through Cleveland, and Columbus, and Dayton, and Toledo. And finally, it's our night to have this conversation here in Cincinnati, and we're excited to do so, to discuss how this often overlooked sector is really driving a significant portion of the state's economy. Not just providing new areas of growth and development, not just empowering residents and businesses to reduce their energy bills and take control of how energy works in their buildings, not just providing thousands, tens of thousands of high-paying jobs around the state and saving residents and businesses millions of dollars on their energy bills, but quite literally changing the way we do business. I came back to Cincinnati in 2012 after being away for almost 10 years and was surprised to recognize where the state was in its policy development and the number of businesses in the community that were driving energy efficiency, renewable energy, and other advanced energy technologies. And was really impressed to be coming back to my home state, having done policy work in other parts of the country, in the Southwest, on the East Coast, some places that are seen oftentimes as very progressive and forward-thinking, and to see how much had developed here in Ohio. I think that's something to appreciate and recognize and to communicate both amongst ourselves and really throughout the larger community. And that's part of what this conversation tonight is all about. Perhaps I shouldn't have been as surprised as I was to see how far Ohio had come. We were the 26th state to adopt an energy efficiency or renewable portfolio standard for the state. That work was done 5 years ago, but there's certainly been a lot of improvement since then in the work done by utilities and businesses here in Ohio. It impresses upon me, too, that policy work was developed under a Democratic governor, a Republican legislature, that it had a lot of bipartisan support. And notwithstanding some of the challenges that have taken place over the past year that have put a freeze on some of that policy work, the positive progress still continues. The public has largely, I think, started to recognize these benefits. Ohio Advanced Energy Economy did a poll last year where 75% of voters supported having a renewable portfolio standard. 86% supported the state's energy efficiency law. So the message is getting out there. People are recognizing they're involved in these projects. They're taking part at home and at work in some of the work that's going on. And we really just need to continue, I think, to build on everything that's happened. If we look at the state utility filings of the various utility companies that are operating some of these programs around the state, we see a lot of success. Over the first 6 years of the state's energy efficiency policy, over $800 million have been spent, but nearly $2 billion have been saved by homeowners, by small businesses around the state from the projects that have been implemented. And if we look forward to how those projects that have already been developed with that $800 million are going to perform over the life of those improvements, we see nearly $5 billion in value being accrued over the next 20 years. Certainly a lot to continue there and to continue to develop. So tonight we'll discuss these issues, why they're important, what's happening from local businesses, nonprofits, local leaders in the community. We'll have 2 different panels. There was a bio sheet out front that hopefully everybody picked up. I'm not going to go into too much detail with everyone's bio. That will be just for me and what Jane offered. Our first panel is the business of clean energy, creating jobs, reducing costs, and driving innovation, and that's exactly what these leaders are doing. So I'd ask the folks on the first panel to come up. Michael Burke is the Director of Process Engineering with Enerfab. Michael's been with Enerfab for 17 years, focusing on turnkey design and construction of projects in the food and beverage and small-scale combined heat and power market segments. Ted Ford on the end is CEO of Ohio Advanced Energy Economy, which has been the state's leading association advocating for the growth of Ohio's advanced energy sector and the leading voice in continuing this conversation. We're missing one. Denis George, who's making a late entrance, is the corporate manager of energy for Kroger. Under his tenure, Kroger has reduced its average store electric usage by over 35% and was recently awarded the U.S. Department of Energy's Energy Star Partner of the Year award. Steve Malink, founder, owner, and president of Malink, which is a leading provider of HVAC commissioning services, energy-saving kitchen ventilation controls, and solar PV systems. In addition, the corporation's corporate headquarters just outside Cincinnati was the first LEED Gold new construction and LEED Platinum existing building certified office building in the state of Ohio.
Still the coolest building you've ever been to.
Coolest building you've ever been to. Please stop by afterwards for a tour. Beth Robeson is the Community Solutions Director for Empower Gas and Electric and the owner of Robeson Marketing. Beth comes from a social and digital media world with experience in groundswell marketing. Most recently, Beth led Cincinnati's Oakley Recycles campaign, which is a great grassroots initiative to get residents in the Oakley community engaged around recycling, and is bringing this model to the energy efficiency and renewable energy sectors next. So I'll let each of our panelists provide a brief overview of their work in the sector, asking them to focus on how their business is helping to build Ohio's advanced energy economy and what people may not know about the success of their industry.
Well, thank you. It's on. Okay. Hello, everyone.
everybody thinks the big companies don't care about the environment and pollute and waste and do all that sort of thing, but when you run a grocery business, and Kroger runs a few stores, 2,700 nationwide, when margins are thin and competition is extreme, every penny counts. And so energy efficiency is great business, huge returns on investment. And when I have to take an energy project to my management, I have to compete against pizza ovens and Greek yogurt dispensers and new stores and pretty designs and everything else. And so our returns have to be pretty darn good to compete against that, and thankfully they are. It helps contribute not only to a better environment, but lower costs for our goods and our services, which has a incredibly good impact on society. And so it's nice to be able to deliver those things in a way that brings value to people. It's nice to have the size that we do to help drive that not only on a state level but nationwide. But it helps in states like this where average prices for electricity aren't as high as the East Coast and the West Coast and Arizona and some of the other places we are where energy efficient is more necessary when it's 13, 14, 15 cents a kilowatt hour. Nonetheless, one can save money here, and that gives us one more club in the bag, if you will, to use a golf example, about keeping our company more competitive, keeping us sharper, keeping us up with the times, and really delivering on expectations of our customers who want us to do these things. They still want milk to be $1.99 a gallon and bananas to be 19 cents a pound. So we have to figure out how to do both, which isn't always easy. And so you have to just be sharp and good with what you do with efficiency, which we believe we are, and it delivers a product. And as you continue to deliver those products, it'll drive an economy. It'll drive jobs. It'll drive a lot of things. So for us, it's just darn good business, and one we're going to keep doing for a very long time. We don't see any end to energy efficiency. We've been fortunate to reduce by 35%. 50% is in our sites. And who knows where we go after that, particularly if renewables start taking hold or rates keep going up. This is business that is here to stay, and we're here to help share that technology. I think we're fortunate enough to be able to experiment with a lot of things that for us is a cutting edge project, but that leads to the development of things that become more available for everybody else down the line as well. So the best competitive advantage we get maybe is getting ahead of things for a couple of years, but eventually everyone's going to figure it out, they're going to catch up, and we're all going to be better off for it. So it's just nice to be part of that process.
I'm Ted Ford. I'm the CEO of Advanced Energy Economy, Ohio Advanced Energy Economy, and we are a relatively new statewide trade association representing companies that either are in the business of providing advanced energy products and solutions, everything from renewables, energy efficiency, to advanced technologies for industrial use. And we also represent the growing number of end users who have a strong interest in advanced energy. So, the energy discussion at the State House has been quite exciting over the last 2 years. And we've kind of been right in the middle of it. And the fundamental question, which is becoming much more important every day, is what are our choices? What are we going to be doing about the future? It's not as though the status quo is just going to be there indefinitely. And certainly around the world, you're seeing a much more competitive environment around energy sources. The Chinese are rumored to be completely dirty energy, but in fact, they've probably made some of the greatest strides forward on energy efficiency and renewables in the last couple of years. So it's a global thing. It's happening everywhere. So here in Ohio, our focus has been on the companies that are interested in doing this and providing a unified voice to those companies. We currently have about 110 members. There was a report that came out last week that indicated there are about 7,900 businesses in the state that are providing advanced energy services, renewables, energy efficiency, you name it. And they employ about 89,000 people, according to this report. That's a significant industry sector. And this discussion usually ends up being between, renewable energy and coal, which it shouldn't be because there's a blend of issues and solutions out there. But to give you a sense, there's about 2,000 direct coal mining jobs left in Ohio. Most of our coal comes from western states where it's low sulfur coal. So we're talking about a growing industry that has a significant economic impact on Ohio. Our goal has been to try to take what's been a fairly emotional debate over a war on coal or other issues along those lines, basically politically charged, and try to find the fact-based middle ground and look ahead a ways. So we have, in fact, released today a report for Ohio policymakers that basically outlines options. So if you look at Ohio, it's a growing state. We're doing well. The Midwest is doing well. We're going to continue to grow. Population will grow. Electricity demand will grow. Things will change in terms of environmental regulations and other things. What are our best ways forward? What are our options? And then which have the most advantages and disadvantages if we should choose to go forward? So our study today was, that we released today, was actually performed by the Analysis Group, which is a nationally recognized consulting firm on energy markets and regulation. And they produced a good analysis. We have copies out at the front table of a 2-page summary that you might find of interest. But basically, we looked at all of the realistic options Ohio has, and we basically evaluated them according to 7 criteria, which include electricity reliability, cost, ratepayer risk, state control, that is, can the state of Ohio actually affect what happens, state economic impact, health and the environment, and emission controls. And it's clear that renewables, distributed generation, energy efficiency, demand response, a variety of the advanced energy technologies that are available to us today have great advantages and few disadvantages. There's currently proposals pending before the Public Utilities Commission to allow old coal-fired plants to come under new agreements with the utilities in which they would operate for the next 15 to 20 years in order to supply electricity to all of us. And that has the most disadvantages and fewest advantages. So the one final thing I'll say on this is a huge economic opportunity for Ohio. It's not just about energy, supplying energy. Do we like clean energy? Do we like dirty energy? It's about companies that employ 89,000 people, according to last week's report, and is growing at double-digit rates, and how we tap into that, given Ohio's heritage, and make the most of it for creating jobs, economic growth in the state of Ohio. So I have said on numerous occasions, and Dale Arnold was there for all of them, he's in the audience here, that advanced energy is going to rival the automotive industry in terms of economic impact in the state of Ohio. And it's going to happen because that's the way the economy's going. We can make public policy that helps that along or that hinders it, but it's going to happen. So for that, I'll turn it over.
Thank you. My name is Michael Burke, and as Jeremy said, I work for Enerfab here in Cincinnati. And if you know Enerfab, you may know us as a pressure vessel fabricator. Some of you may know us as a coal-fired power plant maintenance and construction company. And as we look at what has changed or what is changing over the years here, is that power generation from coal, while it's not going to go away, is shrinking. And therefore, our business, which has historically portion of it been maintenance of coal-fired power plants, that business, some of that is going away. And really, what I wanted to talk to you about today is combined heat and power, some of our successes with combined heat and power, and how that plays into specifically the state of Ohio. As we have an abundance of shale gas available in the state. That's driving a lot of the state's economy right now, which is a tremendous thing. But I think we need to challenge ourselves with the efficient use of that resource. And combined heat and power is a very efficient use of natural gas. And there are many types of combined heat and power. What I'm going to talk about a little bit today is the use of combined heat and power to drive a reciprocating engine that generates electricity and utilizes the waste heat for either an industrial or a commercial use, like generating hot water or steam. But to give you an example, we put a combined heat and power, small combined heat and power system at one of our facilities here in Sharonville. And it's a 200 kilowatt system. And what it does is it generates our base load electricity. So our peak load is upwards of 700 kilowatts. But our base load, we're able to run this engine all the time. And we're producing power at a lower cost than what we can buy from the utility. And then we're able to take the waste heat from the exhaust gas and we generate hot water with that. And that hot water is then used in one of our processes in the plant. And previously we were firing a small boiler to generate that hot water. So we were able to remove that boiler completely. And what that does is, if you look at the overall efficiency, if you purchase electricity from the utility and then you're generating hot water or steam with a natural gas-fired boiler, that combined efficiency in your plant is somewhere in the neighborhood of 50, 55%. With the combined heat and power system, we are seeing efficiencies of 85+%. So meaning that the energy that's in the natural gas that we're utilizing, we're making use of the 85% of that available energy, which is a tremendous thing when you're looking not only at reduction of natural resource usage, but also energy savings and cost savings associated with that. So this project, we were able to provide a return on investment, a simple payback of about 4 years. And really, we're starting to see a lot of interest. And Enerfab specifically, we're interested in developing and providing the engineering and installation of these systems. But we really feel, and I really feel personally, that if I can show you a system that's operating, that's providing a real cost savings and competitive advantage for one of our businesses, that that speaks volumes versus showing numbers on a piece of paper. So I am very excited about the opportunities that combined heat and power systems bring. Distributed generation as well. We just installed a 1 megawatt system in central Kentucky that is not a combined heat and power system, but it's generating for one of the rural electric co-ops in Kentucky. And so that they're able to produce some of their own power at a lower cost. And so, again, a great use of local regional natural gas that's produced in the state of Kentucky and utilized to generate electricity for, a local co-op, local homes and industry in that area. So, like I said, I think combined heat and power is one of, a lot of new, exciting technology that's out there. I don't think that it's the end-all, be-all for everything, but I think it provides a significant advantage across a lot of different markets. So, thank you. I appreciate being here today.
My name is Steve Malink with Malink Corporation. We're based in Milford, and my company is almost 30 years old. And our journey started about 10 years ago, though in earnest, when it comes to really walking the talk in energy efficiency and renewable energy. We designed and built the first LEED Gold certified building in Ohio, and then improved that to LEED Platinum. And then about 5 years ago, I was inspired by the vision, it's called the 2030 vision, that all new construction would be designed to be net zero energy, which means that on average, over the course of the year, you're generating as much on-site renewable energy as you need to offset your electric loads. So we have invested as we can afford to in energy efficiency and renewable energy over the years, and we have achieved that goal of becoming net zero energy. And so we didn't have any special funds or abilities any more than anybody here on the stage or anybody here in the audience. It was just, we had a goal, we set targets, we invested as we could afford to, and we achieved the goal. So my message would be one of empowerment to all of you as homeowners, business owners, managers and companies, leaders in schools, et cetera, to seize the opportunity before you to save thousands of dollars. And if you really think about your lifetime, if you're a young professional in your 20s, say, and thinking that you're going to be paying energy bills for the next 60 plus years, this is $1 million opportunity for you. So it's not small change. Just don't be thinking in terms of monthly utility bills of $100, $200, or $300. Lifetime, this is a $1 million plus opportunity for everybody in here. And for businesses, of course, it's much bigger than that. So, what did we do? We did very common sense things. We have a super insulated envelope. We have a geothermal HVAC system. We have highly efficient lighting systems. To the degree possible, we rely on natural light to provide most of the lighting in our facility. We have solar thermal for heating our hot water, and we have solar PV. So, on most spring, summer, and fall days, when the days are sunny and long, we're generating more power than we know what to do with it. So we send it back to the grid. The meter spins backwards in effect, and we send green power back to our neighbors. And the utility sends us a credit for the amount of power that we sent back through the meter. But during the winter time, when the days are shorter and cloudier, we're typically a net importer of power from the grid. But on average, over the course of the year, we're net zero energy. I will say, though, that we're being challenged to stay net zero energy as we continue to grow, hire more employees, turn on more computers, and have more electric cars in our parking lot. So we have about 15 charging stations. We have almost that many electric cars now for employees in our company. And more our vision is to have charging stations in almost every parking spot to kind of not only lead in green building, but in green transportation. Like Ted, I believe that there's a great opportunity for Ohio, and in fact, the United States of America, for us to not just take the easiest path, which is always the lowest cost path, the path of least resistance, but to actually have a vision for us as a state that we can lead this new energy age. In the 20th century, America led all the great ages that were there, from the most recently the internet age, but before then the computer age, the space age, on all the way down back to the start of the industrial age. America won those ages, and we exported our genius to the world. And so I think we risk losing out on the next greatest age to happen in this world, which will be the advanced energy age. And just as we're still dependent on the Middle East for a percentage of our oil, we're going to be dependent on China and other countries for our solar power and our wind power technologies. So we had a business meeting today, and we were talking about the analogy between the game of chess and business. And those who can think the most moves ahead will most often win the game. And in my opinion, I think right now our state and national lawmakers are playing, well, not chess and not checkers, but they're playing tiddlywinks. And we need to have a greater vision than thinking, what's the cheapest form of energy just today. Think over the life cycle cost of the asset and the unpredictability of energy rates, well, not just, next year, but 5 years, 10 years. So it's a great hedge against not knowing what you're going to be paying for your electricity. And again, it's a great economic, national security, and environmental opportunity for this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Well, I'm so excited to be here tonight, and before I dive in, I have a question for the audience. I'm wondering how many people here have read Malcolm Gladwell's The Tipping Point? Yes, awesome. Well, I bring that up because having talked with, over the past few months, many people in the advanced energy world, I'm hearing over and over again that we are really kind of approaching that tipping point where hold on to your seats because things are just going to really take off. And I think we're hearing that from the panel tonight. So what I want to share with you is, as Jeremy said, I am with Empower Gas and Electric, and we have what I feel is a very innovative energy efficiency program. And we are launching that program in conjunction with the City of Cincinnati, the Greater Cincinnati Energy Alliance, and Duke Energy. And this program has directly focused on overcoming, I think, two significant challenges in the energy efficiency world, at least where it pertains to home energy efficiency. And those two challenges are, number one, on the energy efficiency side, I think companies and organizations have tried to do too much, and they've tried to do it too fast. And what that translated in for the homeowner, it translated into a very sense of overwhelm and solutions that were too expensive for most homeowners to implement. So what Empower has developed, the program that Empower has developed with these other very significant partners in the community, is an energy efficiency program that focuses completely on the lowest cost, highest impact solutions, energy efficiency solutions. And that allows the homeowner to have a much lower cost for implementing these things and a greater return on their investment. So we're estimating right now, and I was talking with Michael Forrester earlier today, and I said, Michael, these numbers are very rough, so don't quote me on any of this. But right now, what we're looking at is about a $900 a year savings for homeowners. And I'm estimating that we could probably help about 20,000 households in Cincinnati with some energy efficiency retrofits. Now again, these numbers are very rough, and I may come back to you next month or a couple weeks from now and say, whoa, that was way off. So, but these are just our initial estimates, and if there are 20,000 households roughly that could benefit from this very focused energy efficiency program, we're talking about a savings per year for the community of about $17 million. So I do think that tipping point is happening, and I'm very honored to be a part of this very exciting industry. I think there's going to be a lot, as Steve said, a lot of opportunity moving forward for people who really understand that we are heading into a new revolution. It's not the industrial revolution, it's not the technology revolution, it's going to be the energy revolution. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So I want to take some questions. I want to start off by talking a little bit about competitive advantage. Denis, you referenced, staying competitive in the market by providing a service that your customers want. Ted, you talked a little bit about markets in China and what's going on around the world. And I get encouraged sometimes by seeing what's happening in the state, some of the jobs numbers, some of the growth, some of the projects that are being implemented. And what I forget often to put in context is the national economy and the international economy is growing so rapidly in this sector. So to me, as much as it's about growth, it's about competitive advantage. It's about how much are we as a local community, as a state, taking advantage of the opportunities that exist to be successful and grab a hold of this growth while we can, so that we're the leaders and we're the champions of these opportunities. So I wonder if you can all talk a little bit about that competitive advantage, about what can we be doing as a state, as a community, to be more successful and be these leaders in these sectors.
I think that's a great question. When you look at energy efficiency and you look at the investment that, say, I'll use the combined heat and power. That's a significant investment for an industrial or healthcare or even a commercial user. That's a significant investment, and a lot of times, these companies have limited capital, and they need to figure out, where am I going to spend that? Where am I going to spend that money? Am I going to spend it on a project that has an 18-month ROI, or am I going to spend that on a project that might have a 4 or 5 year payback? And it's going to take a little bit of a mindset change in that, yes, right now a energy efficiency project or a combined heat and power project may not provide that immediate return, but I think as Steve had said, energy is going to be something that a company is going to be required to use. You have to use that to sustain your business, and a technology like combined heat and power, or any other form of alternative energy use, provides you with some of that hedge against what your future energy costs are going to be, and being able to take advantage of using that energy efficiently. So that's really where I see that not only does the general industrial base need to take a little bit of a different look, but I think also from a regulatory standpoint, there needs to be some help in looking at self-generation of electricity a little bit differently than we have in the past.
I would say, as a small to medium-sized business, that we're able to compete more effectively against our competitors by the virtue that we have practically a zero energy bill every month, and that our technicians are driving hybrids that make 50 miles a gallon, where most of our competitors are driving around in trucks. So just from a pure energy standpoint, we're out competing. We're set to survive and thrive over the long term. But I would say that, for us, the greater opportunity has been doing something that involves leadership and pushing the envelope, much in the way that, to be honest, Apple is kind of a role model for us. They're investing in clean energy, maybe not necessarily 100%, because it's the number one economic priority, but they also believe in the other benefits that I mentioned before, the environmental opportunity, the security opportunity, and the larger national economic opportunity. And I think that attracts and retains great talent in organizations. And when you cast a bold vision and you start to lead as a company in your community, in your industry, in the country, people flock. And that's why Apple is able to design the most insanely great products in the world. And that's why millions of customers, why many of those customers will rush to buy an Apple product. So I think there's what we often call an HR and a PR benefit to being a leader in this emerging energy space.
I'm going to put my marketing hat on instead of my energy hat just for a minute and just say, from a competitive advantage standpoint, I think one of the biggest challenges that companies have, and possibly even communities and governmental organizations, is this idea that they're not really talking in a way that is digestible to the members in their organization or to their customers. And as a digital and social media strategist, I can tell you that your customers and the members of your organizations, your constituents, truly do care about this or these topics. And the more effective you can be at telling a compelling story and telling it quickly, that's going to make sure that your competitive advantage really translates into that in the marketplace.
I'll tag on that by saying a lot of it is leadership, and I agree with you, Steve. A lot of it is education, and that's everything from teaching young people what energy is about. Larry, I think you guys do a great job with that here. And everyone doesn't have to be an electrical engineer. We need technicians, we need HVAC people, we need refrigeration people. Those are great jobs. And we need to teach kids that there's as many computers with all of that than there is just working in computers. And that there's a fabulous line of jobs there for blue collar and white collar. Education there, but educating CFOs of companies that energy is a good investment. I've seen that in my own company where it took us years to convince a CFO that this was as good an investment as something that generated revenue. Everyone's geared towards revenue and sales, but you talk about the currency, talk about the sales equivalent to saving energy, and good business people know to save costs in addition, but there's always a bias to sales and revenue. So convincing CFOs how this is a good investment, convincing banks that's a good thing to lend money for, convincing people there are alternate ways of doing that. Like Jeremy, I need to talk about the PACE program more. And then likewise, as community leaders, and the city does a great job, the zoo's doing a great job, and a lot of these organizations do a great job of making this information known. The Chamber, OKI, has done a lot of work in this area, making this information known, just general dissemination. There's a sports section of the paper, there's a financial section of the paper. I won't say there will be an energy section of the paper someday, but why not? Or have an energy publication, something, right? And there's more than just papers. Listen to me, I'm old. But the dissemination of information is going to be important, which is part and parcel of education. I don't think we're getting to, I don't know if we're getting to the young kids yet. I don't know. Don't know if there's curriculum for this yet. There should be. I know out west there is. There's some great companies that I know, people I know personally and learned about during the recent Energy Star ceremonies. They're helping high schools develop curriculums in energy management, in part by getting the students to help them manage their own school buildings, and then turning around and finding internships and jobs for those kids.
I just wanted to share that Steve is here from Ally, and they are doing some amazing things on the education side with kids. So you might want to touch base with him afterwards, because it's a pretty powerful organization.
And I know the Kenton Ridge schools in Kentucky are doing some of that work as well. They've got a co-op who's working for Kmart.
Well, and I think this is a natural fit for kids. They get it really fast because they don't have all of the biases that we have, having grown up in a more traditional energy world.
Sure. But we need to develop that curriculum and then convince companies like ours to help support that, because we need those people working for us eventually if we're going to be in that field. Too often we hire somebody who got trained by somebody else doing something else, and we really want to sustain this as an industry in the state. It needs to be on an educational level, a vocational level, and everything else to build it from the ground up. And if that's what people are going to school to learn about, then that's where the jobs will be, even if they create them themselves with the things they learn.
Well, I agree with everything that's been said up here, but the one thing I would say that the state could do is to get out of the way of a growing industry. So if you look at the state of Ohio, we've had a program that was initiated by Governor Taft 10, 12 years ago called Ohio's Third Frontier. We've made major investments as a state in emerging industries that we know can be big economic drivers for the state of Ohio. And this is the only industry sector that I have seen where the state has gone out of its way to specifically slow and retard the growth of a industry that's growing at double digits. I spoke earlier about the job numbers that came out last week. Most of the job growth today, and Steve Malink can testify to this as well, is coming from companies in Ohio that are doing projects out of state because they can't get a project going here very easily, so they're going elsewhere. And it's a huge burden on those companies. And at the end of the day, the question is, why are we here? Why aren't we where the market is? And I've not seen an industry treated in this way, particularly one where so much investment has been made in such a short period of time with so much success. So one message I would hope folks in this room would take away, speak to their legislators about, is why aren't we capitalizing on this unique industry, this unique opportunity? It's the future. Let's get on with it.
So questions from the audience? Mr. Bell.
Yeah, Doug Bell. My question is in terms of adopting renewable energy. I read where some companies are going ahead, even without state incentives or national incentives, to put on-site solar panels or invest in a wind turbine farm and purchase green electricity. Is that still limited to the front edge companies like Google, or do you see that becoming more and more widespread?
Well, as Ted said, renewable energy is coming, and it's coming fast. The question is Ohio going to take advantage of that and rather than follow the market, be a leader in it? Renewable energy is already competing with conventional fossil fuel electricity in many states. I think I read just recently that in the majority of the states already solar and wind is competing very favorably. And in fact, in 2013, more new generation capacity coming online came from solar and wind rather than from coal and natural gas. And we often get hung up on, well, is clean energy too expensive? And right now we're with the natural gas boom, electric rates are a little depressed, and so it is hard here in Ohio, in the heart of coal country and in the fracking industry, to show solar power being competitive with the lowest rates that we're now seeing. In my argument against that, I guess, is that number one, we're looking at today's rates. We don't know what's going to happen next year, 5 years, 10 years. So invest as if you want to have control of your energy future today. Two, the utilities, of course, knock the argument down, saying that clean energy is too expensive. They've been the beneficiary of decades of ratepayer subsidies who, we all in the past have had to use them as suppliers of clean energy, or of fossil fuel energy. And then, thirdly, there's external costs of fossil fuel generated electricity that are not being accounted for, that I think increasingly need to be accounted for in the discussion, whether it's the environmental costs, healthcare costs, the security costs. Just think of how risk prone we are as a country because we have these central power plants feeding millions of people, and a cyber attack or a terrorist attack on a plant could bring down this country's economy. And the more decentralized, the more internet like the energy industry is designed and built, where yes, if there's an attack, it's only going to take down a very small percentage of the grid, not 50% or 70% or all of it. So there's all these external costs that are so high in that I think we as a state and as a country need to start addressing them and not be treating them as if they're altogether separate.
Go out and get a cookie. Good. I'll add a few things, if I may. Number one, my personal opinion is the tax credits are inhibiting solar growth because we're not making those panels any more efficient. They're what, 18%, 20% at most? They've got to be a lot more efficient. And without the tax credits, I think the R&D people go back to the drawing board and make them so, which will spur their movement. Secondly, we haven't talked about batteries at all, which is the most, sort of the biggest, coolest thing being talked about now, especially on the coast where the economics are starting to drive that. And if Elon Musk has his way, there'll be batteries everywhere. Batteries will be part of the game changer with solar and wind, I believe, and that has to be a factor that goes into that. So the technology is not dying. If anything, the technology is just getting warmed up because the last couple of years of solar and wind development have shown us it can be done, and America doesn't collapse on itself. So I think we are on the verge of it. It's just starting. That's what makes it most exciting.
Hear, hear.
Anybody else? Other questions?
Steve, you spoke a moment ago about externalities, and of course, one of the biggest drawbacks of fossil fuels is that they make dirty air, and dirty air make people sick. And so one of your products is clean air. How do you monetize that? How do you develop a competitive advantage out of that aspect of what you're doing?
Beth was talking about, and Denis, about the importance of education. It's through seminars like this where we let the voters in every district in America know about what are the consequences of dirty power. We've been to some degree oblivious to it, I think, and now it's starting to catch up with us in various ways. So the way we try to deal with it is we focus on customers that appreciate the advantages of clean energy. That, they're Apple and Google and Facebook. Those are the types of companies we pursue as customers because they have similar values and beliefs, and they're a lot easier to sell clean energy to than traditional manufacturing type companies, has been our experience. So, until we get Apple, Google, Facebook to create this, mass market, then, the next tiered customers will be, hopefully, those other more traditional companies.
Well, I would just add that a lot of change in society comes from cohort replacement. So for those of us who are listening to the younger generation, these kids get it, and they're voting with their dollars. And so they're talking to each other, and they're not listening to commercials on television anymore. They're not looking at the billboards going down the road. These kids are paying attention to what their friends and family members are saying about who are the companies that we really want to be spending our dollars with, which companies are really working to make the world a better place. I'm sure many of you have heard of Tom's Shoes. Every time you buy a pair of Tom's shoes, they donate one to a impoverished child who doesn't have a pair of shoes. That resonates with these young people, and so I think a lot of the tipping point is going to come when these kids get to the point where their spending power increases.
Okay, you've been talking about the energy saved by industry, but there's also a huge public out there beyond industry. They are affected by the distribution system. And the distribution system in the United States has been more and more concentration in certain points, like big stores where you have to drive a long ways to get to the store. Now this causes people to consume more fuel, for us to build more highways, and all of that. Is there any thought given towards getting the goods out there to people so they don't have to drive so far to get these things?
My thought is the next panel might be able to better answer that question. Those who are doing, city planning and designing the communities of the future so that there's less driving and more walking and through mixed-use developments.
I want to ask one more question.
I think Kroger is
Yeah, we build kind of a big store, don't we?
sure do.
Yeah, but I will tell you as well that we are looking at small format stores for getting back into the cities. Something about 12, 14,000 square feet, compact, and meet some of those needs. For that very reason, because there is a lot of urban development going on, and that's a market that we need to cater to as well. And so there is a backlash to building big stores, and that isn't for everyone. And so when you'll hear our management talk about the future, we don't really talk that much about Walmart. We talk about Whole Foods, and we talk about Sprouts and Winco and Fresh Time and some of those kind of companies who are making that smaller format change. And so we realize we have to do that, as well as Amazon and home delivery that we're trying to get into as well. So I don't know if it'll be dirigibles everywhere delivering things instead of, but there's a greater mind towards that need than maybe is apparent right now because of the direction we're going. But don't be surprised if it does continue, because we do recognize that point.
I want to ask one more question of the panel, and it's a big one, and we're close to 7, so hopefully you can give me a short answer. But the changes made during Senate Bill 310, which was adopted by the state last year, are looked at differently by a lot of different parties. And I'm wondering if you can quickly summarize kind of how this has affected businesses to date, and what may be the most important policy issue that the state can take on to continue the growth of this industry.
All right, I'll start. Well, the Senate Bill 310 basically froze Ohio's energy standards, which provided a mechanism for renewable energy projects and energy efficiency projects to get done. And it characterized those standards as mandates. There's a lot of political gamesmanship that goes on in these policy discussions. But freezing the industry and freezing those standards was a huge problem, not only for the industry that had made big investments, because just 2 years prior, the state had reinforced those standards and expanded them, but also the uncertainty that it just creates. Those of you who are in business know that you need some predictability around taxes, workforce, a whole range of things to be able to make investments safely and to be able to see your own return on that. So that's been a huge setback. It's also damaged our reputation nationally. You may have heard on Friday, Amazon announced it's doing some major investments in the Columbus area around cloud data centers. We know that some other companies nationally have passed on Ohio because of the uncertainty around our energy standards. And, back to an earlier question, one reason companies are installing these things, doing energy efficiency and renewables and advanced energy, is to hedge their electricity costs. So it's a business decision as well. So Ohio's put itself in a difficult position. On top of that, immediately following the passage of Senate Bill 310, the US EPA came out with its draft carbon rules, which are supposed to take effect the middle of this summer. And Ohio has to come up with a plan for reducing carbon emissions. So what we've done with Senate Bill 310 is create a lot of uncertainty, a lot of confusion, a lot of unnecessary pain to our particular industry sector, and all of that's been very damaging. I would say the thing that needs to happen is we need to quickly get on with it. Certainly the governor has shown support for these kinds of policies in the past. He's running nationally, it appears now. He needs to get right with energy, and to do it now, not later. So that's be my comments on 310. That wasn't short, was it? Sorry about that.
Well, our company's been directly impacted by it negatively, and yes, we're not developing projects here in Ohio now. We're developing projects in North Carolina, Massachusetts, New York, California, Hawaii. We're investing millions of dollars into other states, and I thought our state government should be about trying to attract investments, the repelling investments. I would love to do a solar energy project for Cincinnati State, Xavier University, UC, Burke, and many other entities. But, when the policy, the law that was just passed last year that froze the energy standards, it basically put a crimp on any future demand for solar renewable energy credits. So for those who aren't familiar, let me just say at a high level, the previous law was that utilities would diversify their energy portfolio beyond coal and natural gas and nuclear, and include other things like solar, wind, hydro, et cetera. The goal was by the year 2025 to have 0.5% solar. That is such a small goal to start with, and to think that our state lawmakers thought that was too aggressive. 0.5% by the year 2025. The rest of the country and the world will be far ahead of us if we think that's the best we can do. And it's been frozen. So at the very least, we need to unfreeze the freeze and get on with growing our economy here in Ohio with solar and wind projects.
And I would echo some of these comments as well. It's impacted Enerfab's business from a combined heat and power standpoint, as combined heat and power was a specific part of the Senate bill, in that it was going to provide some incentives to make combined heat and power a little bit more attractive. In addition to the other parts that were in that bill. As you look at the state of Ohio specifically, it's ripe for energy efficiency. One of the large EPA reports on combined heat and power showed over 10,000 potential CHP sites just in the state of Ohio. And when you look at the energy efficiency that's potentially involved with that, people are going to make decisions for their business based on dollars for the most part. I think the majority there's going to be those few leading companies that don't necessarily make their total decision on that, but by and large, people are going to make decisions on what's going to mean the most for my company from a profitability standpoint. And we need this portfolio of energy, of advanced energy projects and technologies to to make us more competitive. It's not just combined heat and power, but as Steve said, it's solar, it's wind. Coal is going to be a smaller portion, albeit, but it's still going to be there. The wind is not always going to blow, the sun's not always going to shine. So we need a portfolio of energy to really make this state and this country competitive going forward.
I'll be quick, Jeremy. I've made it a policy whenever I speak publicly that if we bring up a problem and we kind of dump it into your lap, I always try to, at least at the end, offer a potential solution or something that we all can do potentially to address that problem instead of just dumping the problem and then walking away. So I would leave you with this thought that maybe there are people here tonight who could put together a working group that would actually strategize a little bit of how do we solve this problem, because there's some pretty smart people here tonight, some very well-informed people here tonight, and it would be great if we could leverage this energy to help tackle that policy change.
Beth, further to that point of what folks can do, you spoke earlier about the assessment work that Empower Gas and Electric is offering. I believe that's a free assessment. If we have some homeowners in the audience, how would they sign up to take part in something like that?
You can go to empowercincy.com, and we are hoping to launch in the fall, but right now we're doing test homes. So anybody who's interested, it's probably less likely in this group that we would have people who have serious energy efficiency issues in your home, but it does happen. I think I'm a candidate, actually. But I would also suggest to you that we're looking for people who can sell energy efficiency effectively, and we will be looking for installers. So you can come up to me afterwards, and I can give you my card. I would love anybody who has either somebody who they know that needs energy efficiency, somebody who is capable of installing energy efficiency, or somebody who's capable of selling it. Those would be very valuable contacts for me.
The industry is growing right before our eyes. I want to thank the panelists and all the work that their great companies are doing.